Hi, I'm Joe,
And I'm Ricky.
and this is season 4, episode 8 of the Beer and Broadband podcast, slated to come out on July 12th, 2021. And we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about some Breckenridge Nitro Irish Stout that we ordered from Total Wine. Sorry for the background noise. While Ricky's trying it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the beer. Um, it is from Breckenridge Brewery in Colorado. Um, it says Fine Colorado Ales on the can. It's a very beautiful can actually, but it's a nitro stout, so it's got the nitro uh, foamer in there, or the nitro injector in the can. They don't really have anything that says anything like this is the story of the brewery or anything like that, but it is 4.8% ABV. Um, and that's basically it as far as the can goes. So I take it now that you've taken a sip. What do you think?
Yeah, it's good. I'll be the first to say that this style of beer is not exactly my favorite. Like I'm not a big fan of Guinness, but if you are, like my father is, like Guinness is the only beer he drinks. I like this a little bit better. Got a pretty similar flavor profile. A lot of real dark malts. Um, a little bit on the dry side, sticks on your tongue a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those like barleys, but I want to. It's almost like it's a little bit softer. Like it's not quite as bitter. It is not quite as sharp. It's not muted because like muted implies that like the flavors aren't pronounced, and they are. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like a little bit smoother.
Yeah. So I think you can definitely compare this to Guinness in a lot of ways. And I love stouts and porters and things like that. Um, but generally, I like stouts that have more um, like dark stone fruit flavors and things like this. And this is, a different direction. It's more of the
Hmm.
dry Irish stout, like you were saying, like Guinness can be. I really like Guinness a whole lot too, because with certain things and with cooking, it's fantastic.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna go back in again for another sip on it because before I start talking about what I'm tasting out of it.
yeah. You hit a good thing on the cooking. Like there's almost always a little bit of Guinness in my house, even though I'll never drink it as it is. It's just so good to get those like dark notes in anything you're cooking. We love making like an Irish beef stew with it. That's just so good. There's all the times we talk about all these other beers, like you could cook this. I mean, this is. I have 3 cans left because I had to buy a 4 pack. They will
Yeah.
probably all be used in cooking. Like it's that kind of thing.
So as opposed to Guinness, and I've had the Guinness Nitro before, I feel like this one um, doesn't create as because normally with nitro stuff, just like nitro coffee, anything like that, you get like a kind of like a creaminess that comes from the nitro, especially like when it creates some sort of foam or something like that for a head. And I feel like, without comparing them side by side and just going by my memory, that this one is not as creamy in that mouthfeel while being while having more of a um like you get the more like sweet flavors and a little bit less of the bitter flavors. And it's a really interesting way of presenting the beer. It's not a bad beer, and for 4.8% ABV, you know, it definitely has um, a you can tell that it's got alcohol in it, right?
Yeah.
It's the alcohol is like the one of the predominant flavors in there. So it's a good beer if you like stouts, and especially you like dry Irish stouts. Um, yeah. So, uh, did you read the article that I put in here from CNN about Klein Vision's car, um, the flying car?
Yeah, it's cool to see one that's a much longer distance Because flying cars like this have been tested and been around for like a little while, but they generally like kind of suck. They're cars that go real fast and the wings pick up stuff, and maybe it's got a little bit of an engine in it, but not really. They're almost more like gliders. But this one is like an actual like flying car. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. One of the things that I think is kind of the neatest about it is that you're able to like deploy the wings without really having to do any like weird thing, like you have them in a trailer and then you put them on or something like that. I've seen other cars like that do those sort of things. This is all part of like a self-contained unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a pretty interesting overall technology move forward, but realistic. There's not going to be anyone or any country that's just going to let people fly around. I mean, you already have to get licensed to drive. You're not going to suddenly get a pilot's license on top of driving. You'd have to be able to have something like this. You'd have to have a very special set of skills, unless they put automation into it, and then that just seems like I don't think we're there yet with automated stuff. But flying is a little bit different because we can. If we put the right sort of sensors and everything in, we've got a little bit more advanced with flying automation and autopilot for that, but still.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the reason for that is you can get up so high, and there's so few things you can like get into a collision with it of any subsequence. Like you can hit birds on the way up and down, but apart from some real bad luck and it hits like part of your engine or something, most of the time that's not really an issue. You're right in that sense, though. Like I grew up next to a small military airport that had a civilian airport next to it, but it didn't take commercial flights. It was purely for like self-operated vehicles. There's a lot of regulation there. You got to go fairly high for it to be safe. Which I think when most people think flying cars, you're thinking, oh, well, I'll go fly to my buddy's house. Well, there ain't none of that. You got to go land an airport, start an airport. It doesn't save you a lot of time. A lot of logistical concerns with things that don't go up very high too. Like suddenly you're where drones are. You're suddenly where a lot more animals are. You're suddenly where particularly tall buildings or towers are. So you're right. No one's going to just be jumping into this. This thing's not going to be on the market next year, and you just take it for a joyride. But it's nice to see the technology because I think it does two things. One, it gets us closer to personal aircraft that are a lot easier to operate. Because otherwise, right now, most small personal aircraft are like still propeller based. It's hard to get the actual jet because you got to get on a small airport so fast, so quickly. The idea of boom, I'm just going to strap a car to it, and the car can take care of the acceleration up to, however fast I need to go to get the initial lift off. And then I can switch over to that other system, is fairly attractive.
Well, and the car also has to be fairly lightweight. So you're talking about paring it down to have a certain weight limit to be able to lift off, and stuff like that. So
yeah, maybe. I'm not sure how heavy that one is. I know some of these other ones that have a little bit shorter range are still surprisingly heavy. But, airplanes are surprisingly heavy. It really just comes around to how fast can you get it to go. Because as long as you have that lift under the wing, you can be as heavy as you want to be as long as there's enough upward force there. But it's pretty cool. It's like that step in the right direction. It's like this is probably never going to go anywhere directly, but the fact that you can do it and we have it kind of gets us to that next generation of vehicle. Because I don't think these like AirCar sort of things are going to be like a transition phase. I don't think we're going to go from, hey, you've got a normal car to, hey, you've got this AirCar as your next car. I think they're going to end up being their own type of vehicle that'll have its own, evolution. And at some point, it might replace other more traditional vehicles. But the fact that they can get one out here, looking as funky as it does, but the fact that it does this sort of personal transportation at probably a much better like price to performance sort of standpoint. Once it's actually like complete, it's pretty exciting.
I think that probably air cars or like flying cars would be something that people that would own their own personal airplane would be interested in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like who was it? The guy that would fly to and from. He had like he and a bunch of his buddies had a personal airstrip in their backyard, and they were all like high level tech um, people. And so he would go out, and the way he would get to and from work was to fly because it was so efficient. He would avoid the stuff. So he would avoid traffic. So I just for some reason I can't think of his name. I want to say it's Bill Gates, but I'm pretty sure that's not Bill Gates. I think it's someone that was like a person that was contemporary to Bill when he was like head of Microsoft. But yeah, so I think that flying cars are probably not going to be for the populace. They will probably be things that certain individuals who have a desire to be able to go somewhere, like fly somewhere, and then drive around in that area and then come back. And there'll probably be some sort of accommodation, like a private airfield or something that they can take off from. Yeah.
Yeah, probably starting in the beginning because they didn't name a price here, but they're probably fairly expensive. Where I see it really probably making its first big run is counterculture to major airplanes because that already exists. You can already instead of getting on like a big 300-person plane and flying somewhere, there's lots of services that offer like this is a 6-person plane.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take you and your whole party. We'll just go up. We'll go. Sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's not. It's certainly much better, like carbon emission style. Like, what's your footprint? Big planes are generally better at that. If they're huge, like international flights, are really efficient, but domestic flights, certainly not so much. Unless you actually manage to fill up every seat. As soon as your plane leaves and it's half full, you're not really the emissions per person is pretty awful. So I could see this being like a fancy, like, look, we'll do your service. You got a day trip. You got to go somewhere, 200-300 miles. Boom, we'll fly you up and go to your hotel. Like, we'll just drop you off, and then we'll come back. And it's just, that's that kind of evolution. Not only can we get you to your destination, we can get you a little bit further into that destination. Maybe you don't have to come to the airport. Maybe we pick you up at your house, take you to the airport, take off, land at the other airport, drive you to your hotel, and you're done.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of see it for now, is I feel like if it's priced accordingly, it could make that market a lot more attractive.
That's fairly similar to what I was talking about, though. It's a service for people that are looking for something that they don't really transition from a larger air vehicle to a smaller vehicle. They just go, lift off and then go wherever they're going. So let's talk about this computer that I got from AVA Direct. Legitimately, the day I got it, my dog broke his leg, and it's just I haven't been able to really use it since then. But I've got it sitting up in my office, and I can say a couple of things. So the first thing came really well packed, pretty awesome. The people from AVA have good customer service because I had to call them about a problem that I had, and things like that. I will say that their ordering process is not as clear cut as some other places, where it's not like they do certain things and they don't really explain why or how they're doing those things, right? So, for instance, my computer came with a copy of Windows installed on it, but it's not an activated copy of Windows. And because I did not buy a Windows key from them, and I'll have to go buy one and stuff like that. But because I didn't buy one, I didn't actually get Windows set up. And look, you would say, oh, that's expected. You didn't buy a Windows key, but if I went to like say Best Buy or something, I would get an OEM copy of Windows installed on my computer, and it didn't say, or maybe it did, and I just didn't see it, so it wasn't very clear where that was. That if you build out this computer, it doesn't come with an activated copy of Windows or an OS. But they offer to like put like Ubuntu and stuff like that on there. So I'm not really sure why they put Windows on, other than just that was just by
I'm a little
default.
surprised by that. And granted, I haven't bought a computer with them that didn't have an OS since the very first one, and they did tip it with Ubuntu on there. Maybe they've got some of their burn-in suite they want to use Microsoft for some reason. But yeah, I agree with you that if you're not looking for it, that's easy to miss, because they have you build out all the hardware, and then then they take you to like the software section. And most people, rightfully so, especially if you know what you're building, kind of ignore that. It's like, no, I don't need Adobe, backed in there. I don't need these video games with it. But in that list of like stuff you can grab is your operating system.
Yeah.
I can see how you would like thought, oh, software section. Nope, I've got all my software. Continue down, and just didn't even think about it.
Well, it does say Windows, but it's not clear that that's the copy of Windows that you would put on this computer. And maybe that's intuitive for some people. It wasn't clear to me. But I'm not necessarily complaining. What I got was a pretty fantastic system with a really nice high-end graphics card. It's a nice sleeper system. No RGB on the outside. You don't really. It just looks like a black box. But then when you turn it on, it's like 5600X and a 3080 in there. It's pretty significant. And it's a pretty awesome machine. I got to play video games for just a little bit. I was thinking about bringing it down here and dropping it in, but it'll push even demanding titles at a fairly high frame rate. I've got a 200 hertz monitor, and it'll push it no problem. So
yeah. I mean, I still play on 1080 60 hertz, and I've booted up some of my games. Fans don't even turn on the graphics card.
Oh yeah, they want it that right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So let's talk about Bitcoin. The new cryptocurrency that's out there is slated to take over for Bitcoin. But no, just joking. Let's talk about Bitcoin being accepted as legal tender in El Salvador. So I've done a little bit of research on this. I didn't put any links to anything, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I had to do some pretty extensive research as well, because I didn't really understand why they would do it until I read up a little bit more about their country, where they get their money, how they operate. And I think it actually, in light of that information, makes a lot of sense for them. Making Bitcoin kind of like a legal currency with the fluctuations is a bit scary, especially since they're already tied to the dollar. So, they've got a pretty rock solid main currency. But when you peel away some of this stuff, more than 70% of people in El Salvador don't have a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So they're living in places that they can't readily be serviced by a bank. By making it the legal tender, they're only required to accept it, like in a business, they're required to accept it, but only if they have the technology to do so. So you're not brute forcing a bunch of small businesses and, poorer areas into now you have to have the machinery to, transact with Bitcoin. If you're a cash-only shop and you don't have the means to do it, you're not forced to do it. And 20% of their GDP comes from money outside the country. It's people sending money back to them. So that's a pretty significant amount. I mean, excluding 2020, if you go like 2019, 2018, about 17-18% of the U.S. GDP is our government spending. Like your whole government budget is, proportionally being covered by money being sent back to you. And, it's not like the people from El Salvador that's left the country and are sending money back are only in the United States. They're all over the world. So they're having to deal with conversion from euros back into dollars or wons back into dollars or yen or anything else, then just, tipping it back to families that don't have bank accounts anyway. So all these transactions, all that loss of efficiency makes a lot more sense than you can say, hey, I'm going to send money to whatever institution. The banks will accept it. They're going to have technology. It's going to come in this more neutral format. It's a lot easier to get to you than, having to find out what the exchange rate right now is for pesos,
Yeah, you just go and drop it in, like buy yourself some Bitcoin and then send it over. It makes a lot of sense for those sort of things, or you mine some and send it to somebody.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
the real kind of interesting thing here is that the president, and I'm not accusing the man of anything. I don't know anything, but he has done some sus stuff, and he was like the person kind of behind this.
Oh,
So
really?
there's some concern that this might be like a personal wealth or some sort of scheme on his part to be able to take advantage of that financial freedom that Bitcoin could open up for him, and it's less about the goodness for the people. But it might be a win-win for them. He does something nice for them and takes advantage of it, which isn't necessarily a win for the people, but because he's done it in this way, it opens up that stuff for the people to be able to take advantage of some things and avoid some of the penalties and costs of maintenance fees and service fees that come with international transactions.
Yeah. I mean, there could be something there, especially because it's deregulated. Dollars are easy to track. Bitcoin, not so much. It's not impossible, but it's not as easy. So if something was going on there, I could see that concern. But regardless of, I think, what happens there, I can see the benefit to like the average person. If you're taking 20% of your GDP in, just as like people shipping money back home, how much more are you getting if it's in like a deregulated network? You're not necessarily paying taxes on that money you're shipping over, transaction fees, things like that. I expect the real hampering is going to be if like 70% of people don't have bank accounts. That's probably a bigger talk of what technology does 70% of people have available to them. So it's not like they're going to have a smartphone and a Coinbase wallet and all that stuff. So they're probably still shipping most of the money back to banks or people that would distribute the money for them. I'd imagine a system like that where most people don't have bank accounts and you're sending money back to people. You're probably doing it through an intermediary. You're sending it to a bank who then turns it into cash and then mails the cash to whoever you needed to get to. So I can see that, doing some things there. There's also just probably the general idea of maybe not right now it's as volatile as it is, but Bitcoin for most people has been a pretty solid investment. Instead of sending dollars over and, dollars don't really ever appreciate in value. Even when inflation is low, they still slowly lose value. Saying I can send this to my grandmother and I can dish it out to her and say, hey, take this half a coin and give her, 0.05 coins every month. Well, that amount might start going up, Instead of sending her $1,000 every month, by the end of it, maybe it's now 1,200.
Yep.
It's a way for me to put something in there that's not like having to worry about getting stocks in someone's name or anything like that. So I can see it. I mean, it blew my mind how much of the GDP that was, but I guess it also does really make a lot of sense. I know there's a fairly significant community where I was growing up of people that were sending money back home. I mean, it wasn't El Salvador, but you get into a country that has a really high quality of living. Even for El Salvador, you're tied to the dollar. The buying power is probably much more powerful over there.
Yeah.
So
their inflation is not as high in essence as ours is for the same kind of currency.
Yeah,
so.
the rates are probably similar, but a dollar is going to get you a heck of a lot more than a candy bar. Dude,
Right.
a dollar barely doesn't even get you a candy bar over here anymore.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. So, have you heard of Skeeter P?
I have not. I did look it up when I saw it in the notes. I've seen things like it. Of these, like, here's how you can make some alcohol at home. I'll let you tell the story of how you found Skeeter P.
So there's a YouTube channel called Doing the Most, and he talks about Skeeter P on there fairly regularly. I think that's one of his like country fruit wine recipes that he really enjoys making and playing with. Different riffs on it and stuff like that. So he was talking about it like yesterday or the day before. I don't remember when I wrote the thing. I was watching a video where he's talking about it, and I saw him talk about doing like a malt extract as the sugar instead of just using sugar and lemon juice. It was malt extract and lemon juice. And I was kind of intrigued because every other time he's ever talked about it, I was like, like a lemonade wine or a lemon wine that just kind of sounds. We tried it once and it didn't work out as well as I thought it should have. Now that I'm a little, further along in this evolution, something like where you take like a malt extract and you put it in with like some lemon juice and you create something that's almost like a shandy in a glass, but it's a little bit higher ABV. That seems intriguing to me, and so it might be one of the things that we talk about later, or maybe even attempt. So it might be worth a 1 gallon batch. I got to get the ratio of stuff kind of down. But I don't know. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I read through it. Was not super impressed with the recipe. I'm not sure exactly how it would taste, but they had one tip in there that I really liked, because we've talked about doing like really heavy lemon-based drinks. And then that's pretty hard because there's not a lot of nutrients available. It's very acidic. It's really hard to get a good environment for your yeast in there. And the person who wrote the recipe touched on that and touched that even with some adjustment, it's really prone to getting like a lot of that sulfur gas in there, which we experienced when we made our lemon drink. But their tip was to take yeast from an already active fermentation. Like you're making something else. Like go take a scoop of that wine that's halfway done and throw it in there to try and combat. It's hard to get the yeast rolling and happy with like, look, don't take it at the end because it'll already have had like alcohol poisoning already weakened. Don't do it at the beginning because then they'll still be like trying to rehydrate. They won't be like there. But take some that are like healthy in the middle of a different fermentation, throw them in there. If they're still prone to sulfur, then it's probably not working that great. But it's still a handy idea. You're going to make something in an environment that's probably not very, conducive to good fermentation. Well, go take the all-stars from an already existing batch and let them have a swing at it instead of putting new ones in. So I might have to try that sometime if I ever want to make something I think just doesn't, make a good habitable environment for my yeast. See if I can get them all woke up and repopulated and in their prime before I toss them in there.
Yep, I think that'd be a good idea. And sorry about the noise. My cat, or our cat, has decided that it needs to speak up, and so you're gonna hear a little background noise. Yeah, but yeah, I think maybe the next thing that we brew together, might be one of these things, and see how we can do it using the suggested methodologies of doing it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things like that. A lot of the like at home like cider recipes are like that, where they'll just like go get the jug of juice, take out however many cups, put the sugar in, like don't even get like a carboy type thing, just keep the cap on loosely and just go for it. And a lot of those just down and dirty at home stuff. So it'll be interesting. I'm certainly willing to try it. I might make a couple adjustments. They're talking about how hard it is to live in that environment. If I'm remembering right, I didn't see them putting in yeast nutrients or some of those other things you can do to try and make it a little bit easier for them. So maybe we can take it and play around with it, make it a little bit more efficient.
Well, the recipe I'm talking about uses yeast nutrients and tannins.
Oh yeah, your malt one.
Yeah, the Skeeter, the base Skeeter P recipe that I'm talking about from doing the most. He does all those things. He puts tannins in it and stuff like that. He puts yeast nutrients in. It's just or the malt one. I mean, either one. The thing with it though, he doesn't take yeast from the middle of an active fermentation. He takes them from a finished fermentation, but just right afterwards, and then uses the slurry from that to do whatever, and that's generally like after the first racking. So whatever's left at the bottom, just kind of pours that down in.
I'll take my comment back, because looking at the ingredients for the recipe I had, there is some yeast nutrients in there.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe, there is a SkeeterP.com, and that is how I found out what SkeeterP was.
I did
you
not
type it into Google, it's the first thing.
Yeah, I didn't do
one comment from unknown.
Like that on it. That's crazy.
It's got that great like late 90s, maybe like early 2000s website design, very stock. There's a guest book that no one signed, a photo gallery with a couple photos, but not too much. I'm getting into it now. I'm in the phone. Oh man, Joe, come on. Hold on. I got to send it to you. This is the guy. This is the guy enjoying the Skeeter P.
Okay. Skeeter P.
The
original easy to drink, naturally fermented lemon hot weather thirst quencher. Learn more.
Yeah, I threw it in the Discord. You can see it. It's from the photo gallery of people enjoying Skeeter P.
I'm looking at it right now. Is that the Skeeter P being enjoyed? Oh yeah, right there. There we go.
There's an FAQ with a mosquito drinking a lemon. Come on.
That's some pretty insane
that's dedication.
Process there. Yeah.
There's a Skeeter P Facebook page associated with it. 1,300 likes. All right, this guy, he's been making some more work.
I find it intriguing. I think that it might be worth doing, especially since some people that are fairly reputable in like the mead and homemade wine community make it. So I don't want to knock it, but that website, man, that website.
In all honesty, now that I've gone through the website more, I want to make it more. Because on their Facebook, dude, this guy has a post where he's got like a massive amount of supplies. Like that might be 100 pounds of sugar next to just tons of lemon juice. He's gonna make 600 bottles all at once.
Whoa,
if you like it enough
crazy.
to make 600 bottles, it can't be that bad, right?
I from what I understand, it's fairly delicious. So yeah, we should try it. Like maybe the next time we'll make a 1 gallon batch to begin with.
Yeah.
See if we like it, and then we'll start making some 5 gallon batches at that point.
Yeah, I mean, almost. How can you not? If you know somebody likes it enough to make 600 bottles and they're not selling it, they're just going to drink 600 bottles. Well, there's got to be something there. Even if it's not up to your taste, it can't objectively be bad.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be something, especially if you follow their methodology and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we should try it. We'll do that. That'll be like our midsummer kind of thing. Because I also hear that it's something that you can turn around really quick. That's not a.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine it's just sugar alcohol with lemon juice in it. There's not much more there. As long as you don't make it a too high ABV, you're probably gonna have to let it degas a good bit. I think even with nutrients and Energizer, you're gonna get some of those gases that don't sit well. All the sulfates and stuff. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe back, when we were doing this, like 2018, we made our lemon concoction because this stuff with Peter D. We just didn't know what to search for. That was the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what the problem was. Well, all right. I think that is the end of season 4, episode 8 of the Beer and Broadband podcast. What do you think, Ricky?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We have our social links down below. We'd love for you to visit us on Patreon, maybe even join us there and give some feedback, or be part of our Twitter. We also have some other things that we do, like let you know about Ting and stuff like that down below. And the cat agrees that she really wants to have you know about Twitter, because she likes the bird related stuff. She thinks it's delicious. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.